One morning, every shadow on Earth simply vanished. No shadow under a single person. No shadow from any building. The world looked wrong, and no one could explain why. Ethan stepped outside his apartment. He froze. Under his feet, where his shadow should have been, there was nothing at all, just clean concrete. He waved his hand under the sun. No shadow moved with it. It was as if he had been erased from the light itself. Scientists worldwide called it impossible. News channels lit up. The whole planet stood in a light with no darkness beneath it. Then, at exactly 8:14 p.m., every shadow returned at once. People laughed. They thought it was over. They were wrong. The shadows had come back. But something was very wrong. They were not following their owners anymore. Ethan noticed it first in a diner window. His own reflection sat still, but his shadow on the floor slowly turned its head toward him. He whispered, "That is not me." The shadow on the floor tilted its head, and then it smiled. Ethan ran home. Behind him, his shadow kept its own pace, sometimes ahead of him, sometimes waiting at corners he had not yet reached. Across the world, shadows began to disobey. A pilot's shadow refused to sit down. A child's shadow walked into another room. Governments tried to keep calm, but by night, the shadows started to whisper, and only the people they belonged to could hear them. Ethan's shadow spoke to him for the first time in the hallway of his apartment. 2 words, "Let me." He locked himself in the bathroom, turned on every light. He thought light would kill it. He was wrong. The shadow rose from the tiles. It stood between him and the door. Same shape, same height, but wrong. It reached for him. Ethan swung the mirror off the wall and shattered it into the shadow's face. The thing screamed without a mouth. He ran into the street. Everywhere he looked, people were fighting things that looked exactly like them. A woman told him they only appear at night. Her name was Mira. She had survived 3 nights. She would explain what no one else would. Mira said the shadows were not new. They had been trapped inside us since the day we were born, and something had just set them free. She showed him a black notebook. Inside were symbols her grandmother had drawn, symbols that could bind a shadow back to its owner. But the ritual needed something impossible. It needed the shadow to say its true name, and shadows do not want to be named. They tried anyway. Ethan called his shadow forward. It stepped into the circle, and the walls of the basement began to bleed darkness. For a moment he saw its true face, and its true face was his own, but older, hungrier, and full of everything he had ever hidden. It spoke its name, and the name broke something inside him. He fell to his knees. The shadow slipped back beneath his feet. But the ritual worked only on him. Millions of others were still hunted every night, and Mira had found something worse in the notebook. The shadows were not attacking, they were harvesting. Every person taken became a new door, and something on the other side was pulling them through. Ethan and Mira left the city. On the highway, cars sat abandoned. Every driver's shadow had walked away in a different direction. They followed the shadows east, toward the place where the spiral in the sky was widest, toward the source. At the center, they found a tower, not made of stone, made entirely of layered, folded human shadows. Ethan understood then. Every shadow was a person, and the tower wanted his. Mira told him the only way to stop it was to enter the tower and speak the shadow's name backwards. It would collapse, or take him with it. He climbed inside. The walls whispered with thousands of voices. Every step, hands of shadow tried to hold him back. At the top, he found a throne of pure darkness, and on it sat his older self. Smiling, the Shadow King said, "I am what you refuse to become. Give me your body, and no one else has to die." Ethan spoke the name backward. The tower cracked. Light poured out of every seam. The Shadow King screamed. The spiral in the sky closed. Every stolen person fell gently back to earth, and Ethan fell too, through the collapsing tower, into Mira's arms. Weeks later, the world moved on. Shadows behaved again. But sometimes late at night, Ethan looks down at his own shadow